Hi, welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast. I'm Denise. I'm here with Neil. Today is Saturday, April 4th. It's Easter Eve. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a thing, Easter Eve. We've got the bunny. We've got the bunny here. So, today we're going to talk about finances and where we are, how it impacts the debt, and how it impacts our daily lives. But before we get into it, I'd like to ask you to please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Click that bell so you get notified when new videos drop. Keep us on your schedule for our Tuesday night live streams. Also, the bell will notify you that. And as you go through and listen, leave us a comment and let us know what you think. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start with the debt and see where we are today. I'm going to go and share my screen so we can talk about it. All right, there it is, National Debt Clock. This is the Peterson National Debt Clock. Hopefully you can see it. So today, we're still over $39 trillion, 39 trillion, 4 billion. That equals, and it's tiny, you might not be able to see it on your phone, but if you're on the TV screen, you'll see that equals $114,271 for every single person living in America.
Send your check to Donald J. Trump.
All right. Make it out directly to him because he's taking it.
Yeah. So let's talk about things that are impacting the debt now and how much worse do you think it's going to get?
It's going to get bad. It's going to get pretty bad. As I said previously, I really want to caveat this. We have never seen this before in modern history. Never seen this before. So anything any expert says, including myself, we can't say, oh, in 1982, this happened. In 1970, this happened, right? Like, you can't look at the 70 oil crisis, the 1970s oil crisis, and say this is the same thing. It is not the same thing.
Yeah.
So anybody who tells you, right, like, oh, in a year or in 2 years, nobody can give you any idea as to what is going to happen tomorrow. End of story, right? Foreign countries are divesting themselves of U.S. Treasuries. That we now know for a fact. We know that the dollar is, dropping, in terms of its value, which means goods are starting to cost more. We're seeing gas prices go up. We know that fuel, everything that you consume, no matter what it is, has some type of energy component to it. And if energy prices are going up, that means the prices you pay for goods and services will go up.
Yes.
So, the pain is going to start. I mean, I went to the gas pump today. It was $3.89 a gallon today.
You found $3.89 a gallon? It was
at Sam's Club. I found $3.89 a gallon.
I paid $4.09 yesterday.
Yeah, it's getting there, and you got to remember something. What was it, like 260 something? 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
I would say 5 or 6 weeks ago. So we started the war. Today is I think our 5th week anniversary, completion of 5 weeks,
Okay.
starting the 6th week. And so just before that, gas was 260s, maybe 270s in some places.
Yeah.
And now I just paid $4.09 around the block at the Stewart's, which I like to go because it's just convenient.
And I remember MAGA, let's talk about MAGA because we love talking about MAGA. They complained when gas prices were too high. Now in New York, we're seeing you paid $4.09, I paid $3.89, right? You don't hear those MAGA people. Where are the MAGA people complaining about gas prices? They did it under Biden. All I heard was fuck Biden. But, I never hear them once say fuck Trump. They refuse to. They refuse. No, but them. they refuse to acknowledge. They want to blame Biden for everything. They want to blame Obama for everything. But anytime something happens under one of their presidents, it's a cult. They can't be critical. I was more than critical of Obama. I was more than critical of Biden. I heard Democrats being more than critical of Biden, more than critical of Obama, but these people are living in like this delusionary cult world because they can't criticize their own fucking guy.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing cracks. Joe Rogan is critical. Tucker Carlson has now been thrown. He's been thrown out of MAGA. And some really fun stuff with Megyn Kelly criticizing. Who did
Oh,
she?
she's a piece of shit.
She is a piece of shit. But the micro penis comment was pretty funny. Who is she? Levin, Mark Levin. She was called.
She's still a piece of shit.
She always will be.
Listen, here's the thing, right? I've heard her, when she was giving birth, she was more than critical of the fact that there wasn't maternity leave, right? Paid maternity leave. Yet as soon as she had her kid and she got her maternity leave, she came back and was railing against maternity leave as Republicans were attacking paid maternity leave. So yeah. I'm like sick and tired of this MAGA bullshit. They just want slave labor. They don't want labor to get anything. They just want workers to work and until they die, and that's it. Yeah. And now we're being, and now what's the next thing we're being told? Well, more cuts to services.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to get into that.
More cuts to Medicaid and Social Security to pay for Donald Trump's Epstein war.
Yes. And well, that kind of brings me to, you might have seen this. We've all kind of seen this, but I think it just speaks to the moment that we're in. So let me go and share some. Here it is.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that. Childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things.
If you win in
yeah.
So did you hear that though?
Yes.
Did you hear exactly what he said?
Slipped right in there. Medicare, Medicaid. So going back, and I've had this conversation with my mother. My mother, is a Trumper, and she's like, no, he said he's not touching Medicare or Social Security. It's always been their goal to do that, which is an interesting question. Didn't Bush borrow from Social Security to fund his war?
Social Security is funded via your payroll taxes. You pay payroll taxes. That funds Social Security. It does not fund the budget, the federal budget. It funds Social Security and Medicare. Since Social Security was invented, like it was created, the government has collected more money than it has paid out.
Yeah, there should be a surplus.
That's what's happening. So there is a surplus. In other words, the people working today are paying for the retirement of those who are retired today. And then that continues throughout the process. The extra money that they take in, if you take in $150 and you're only paying out $100, right? That means you have an extra $50. Well,
right.
That money has been borrowed. And what they do is they leave a note behind, a treasury note behind, So they spend that money and then leave a Treasury note behind. Treasury notes are good. So at the end of the day, you look like you're even, and it looks like the government isn't borrowing, but that's where your borrowings are going. That's who's owed the money. Okay, when you look at the national debt and you look at that trillion, a lot of that money is to Social Security. 2030, right? Believe it or not, is the turning point of Social Security and Medicare. There will be more people taking from the system than donating to the system. That's what that means. It's not that it'll be bankrupt. It just means more people will be taking from the system, which means that the federal government then has to pay back that money for which it borrowed. For all those years. You had all that money. Now all of a sudden they have to pay it back. Well, the federal government never had any intention. These politicians, Republicans and Democrats, never had any intention of paying any of that money back. And that's what they mean by it'll be bankrupt. More people will be taking, right, from the system or withdrawing from the system than contributing to the system. Period. That's what they mean by that it does not mean bankruptcy. That doesn't even mean insolvency. That just means that they have to basically put back that money for which it already took and spent. But as we see, the government refuses to do that. They've been deficit spending for so many years. They've been driving up the debt. They've been driving up the deficits because of the fact that they don't want to tax the people who earn the money. Okay? So what are they doing? They're trying to create other taxes other regressive taxes to tax the majority of the Americans so that they don't have to tax the wealthy.
Or cut programs.
Cut programs. So now we are entering a war. Right now, in other wars, what has happened? The government has increased the top level tax rate. So in other words, you look at World War II, I mean, we had a tax rate of 90% on the wealthiest people in this country. Okay. And not only that, we had a war profiteering tax. In other words, corporations could not profit off of the war. Those two things allowed America to pay for its war. Okay. Those two things are the two things that this government refuse. And this is not just Republicans. This is Democrats too. They refuse to do it. You will never hear a Democrat or Republican talk about taxing the wealthy to pay for this war or taxing the corporations that are profiting off of this war.
And I think we're pointing to corporate Dems, PAC Dems that are paid by these
Right.
donors. I think the progressives would be happy to tax the rich.
When I say
ones.
Democrats, I mean the Democratic establishment, the Democratic Party, the DCC. The corporation, right? That sits on top of everything. The DNC, the Democratic National Committee, like the establishment corporate Dems. They will never bring those issues to the table. They won't even talk about it. At the end of the day, they'll be exactly like the Republicans. We need to make cuts. And now that video that you played, did you hear that video that Trump played? Did you listen to what he said at the end? So here's the interesting part. They are going to cut services. They are going to put more of a burden on the states, meaning that the states will have to increase their taxes. And what is he saying on top of it? More tax cuts for the wealthy.
Right on the end.
Okay? Right on the end. Tax cuts for the wealthy. Oh, we can cut more taxes from the rich. So we are going to cut your programs. We are going to tax you into oblivion. The states are going to tax you into oblivion. But the wealthy billionaires are getting off scot-free. They aren't going to have to. They are the ones who got us into this. They are the ones who are benefiting and profiting, but they are going to get off scot-free. Done. Period. End of story. They're moving.
Yep. And just so you can get an idea, of what those services are. This list was produced by HQ News. Let's see, share this. Look at this. And you can go
I
ahead
can't
and
even see that.
well, here on my screen, we start at 510 million grants for farmers and agricultural research because we don't need that. $82 million loans for rural small businesses. Small businesses don't need anything. Support 61 million for support for farmers, 240 million for school meals and for education for children abroad, fully eliminated. 659 million for community building grants. So much for your infrastructure. 47 million support for minority-owned businesses, fully eliminated. No surprise there. I mean, we can. There's so much here. 449 for economic development. Look at this.
Here's the stupidity. Okay, right? They already made the decision that they are no longer going to fund minority-owned businesses or immigrant-owned businesses, right, in the United States through the SBA.
Yes.
Okay. Interestingly enough, most of your Fortune 500 companies are immigrant-started businesses. Most of the people who are employed in the United States that aren't government employees are employed by immigrant-started businesses. If you are starting a business in the United States, and you are going to employ people within the United States, right, and contribute to the local economy as well as the national economy, what the fuck does it matter your immigration status? Are we saying that all we care about is American-owned businesses now? Because I see a lot of people driving around in Toyotas and Hondas and various other cars. Right, and Teslas. Give me a fucking break. And not only that, think about it. Tesla was an SBA. They were funded by the SBA originally.
And bought out by an immigrant.
What the fuck are we doing?
But look at this. I'm going through this list. For those of you could go freeze the video and screenshot some of these so you can see it. And I also have it posted on our Facebook page. Make sure that you follow the TOWTalk Podcast Facebook page. But look down here, tucked in here, $1.7 billion they're going to end grants for local law enforcement and public safety. Jesus, thought you were the law and order federal government here, but you don't want to fund public safety. Interesting. I mean, some of this stuff is really, really striking.
This isn't anything new. This is so. I'm going to go back a ways to people in the Hudson Valley. So we live in the Hudson Valley. My former representative, and if you go back to in Congress, was Nan Hayworth. Okay, people may not remember Nan Hayworth. Okay, but
Vaguely.
she used to be the congresswoman before the gerrymandering, who got beat by Sean Patrick Maloney. Okay, Sean Patrick Maloney, succeeded Nan Hayworth, and then was succeeded by Congressman Pat Ryan. So, right, the Hudson Valley is a weird place, right? I mean, we've had a lot of gerrymandering over the years, but I'm dating myself by saying I remember Nan Hayworth. Okay. Right. And Nan Hayworth actually used to say that all the time. She used to say that the federal government's only job is to fund national defense, period. And her goal was, when she was in Congress, was to cut every other program that wasn't national defense. And I used to go on town halls and listen to her, and that's what she said. She advocated for that all the time. So what you're seeing now is what Republicans have been advocating for a long, long time, is get rid of all the social programs and only fund the military at the federal level. This is the implementation of their final solution related to our federal taxes.
And make us pay for it all. Not the wealthy.
Yes.
Not the wealthy. They don't pay for anything anymore.
But here's the interesting part. So Eisenhower had talked about this when he left office. I know that everybody credits him as being the guy who really boosted the defense spending. But he spoke about military spending, and he even said that this idea that it is important that you focus on infrastructure is part of your national defense. Healthcare is part of your national defense. Having a populace that has good roads, that has good infrastructure, that doesn't have to worry about their health care, right, is part of that national defense, because at the end of the day, it helps keep crime low.
Yeah,
It
when the
helps prevent homegrown domestic terrorism.
Yes, exactly. If they're educated, they
Right.
can get good jobs or start businesses or be innovative and invent things and create things. I mean, we had some of our greatest inventions and development through the progressive era and following World War II and following and now we're going in the other direction.
Well, because now, and here's the interesting part, right? And everybody talks about this and everybody knows it. If you want to start a business, there are large impediments to you starting a small business.
Especially
Okay?
today.
Especially today. So when Republicans go out and they talk about regulation, if you ever wanted to start your own business, you know what they're talking about, and you feel every bit of that. And it costs a lot of money. But that regulation was actually put in place by them. And it was done intentionally, right? Because the regulation is put in because the businesses have gotten so big that they have to be regulated. Like, we keep allowing these corporations to get bigger and bigger, but then what do? They price gouge, they don't provide a service, they provide faulty service, you get shitty products out of it. I mean, I keep hearing, like we've heard a million times with every cable provider, oh, we're going to get better service. Like every time,
Please.
like we heard that with, it was Time Warner Cable, and then it became Spectrum, then it became Comcast, and then it became, right? And every time the merger happened, we were told we were going to get better service, and the service got shittier
Yes.
and more expensive.
Oh yeah. That's the reason why I dropped Spectrum last year.
Right. But that's the thing, is the fact that we are told a lie, that allowing these corporations to get bigger will provide a cheaper and better service, but yet somehow the service continues to get worse and worse and more expensive in the process. And, again, I go with what the hell are we doing? We keep voting for Republicans who keep allowing this stuff because Democrats are the ones lying to us.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. So
Both sides are lying to us.
yes, they always do. And so, getting back, we're kind of running off on a tangent here, but getting back to what's happening here. No, it's okay. This is important information because people need to see that this is not this is again, we say this all the time. This is not left versus right. It's up versus down. It is a tiny percentage of this population that have amassed so much wealth that they want to hang on to it by whatever means possible. And so they're going to push everything down on us. They want us to, they literally at this point, we're going to be the ones paying all the taxes.
I mean,
Yeah.
right.
So let's talk about this. We wanted to talk about how, you pointed out at the beginning here that the dollar is shrinking. And I don't think enough people understand what's happening here. But I want to point that I think it was yesterday or the day before, I believe it was a French oil tanker, was allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And this ties into exactly what Neil is talking about. Earlier this week, Trump and all of his, imagine he's running a presidency by tweet. He put up a post that told the European Union, go get your own oil. You'd go in there and fight or whatever. Go get it. It can't be that hard. Right? Absolute desperation. Well, you know what? They're doing just that. They're talking to Iran and they're making deals and they are agreeing to pay for oil and paying tolls in the Chinese yuan. That's the Chinese currency, which means they're not spending our currency. And I'd like you to talk more about what that means in terms of how it affects the dollar and how it affects treasuries and what treasuries, what it means for a country that holds treasuries, what that does for us financially.
Okay, so what people really need to understand is how oil is transacted. All right, every country that buys oil before the war, okay, let's go pre-war,
Pre-war.
had to buy oil utilizing the US dollar. That would mean taking their currency, converting it into the dollar, paying for the oil with that money, and then taking the shipment of oil. So what does that do? Well, that bolsters the dollar because now, every country who was buying oil is buying oil with the US dollar. And the way that they buy that oil is through US exchanges, the US mercantile exchange, essentially. So that's essentially the way oil has been transacted since the 1970s. Okay.
Yes.
And that has bolstered the dollar because other countries essentially had to buy US treasuries or hold US treasuries and maintain a reserve of US treasuries so that they could go out and buy oil to hedge against any currency valuations between their currency and the dollar. And that would be how they would hedge the currency valuation, the differences between currencies between the dollar and their local currency.
Let me stop you there
That
and ask a quick
yes,
question here. With
sure.
each of these transactions, when they make these transactions, does the U.S., let's say, profit a little bit out of that from those
No,
transactions? Okay.
no. The way the US essentially benefits is if the US prints, and I'll get to this in a second, but what it really does is if the US is printing more money, it allows for other countries to hold that money. So it basically is a way to hedge inflation, to hedge. So in other words, the US wouldn't be subject to market manipulation as it related to the dollar. It would be less susceptible to hyperinflation or deflation or stagflation. It would be really a hedge against those things happening,
Okay.
right? In any major way. Okay, so which to be honest with you, you look at the US currency, it's been very since the US entered the deal for the petrodollar in the 70s. The dollar has been pretty stable.
Yes.
You look at other currencies in the world, the dollar has been pretty stable in comparison, and has really been that but it's created this illusion of US superiority through that currency. The US has been able to bolster its military. It's been able to buy things. I
Yes.
mean, it allows the US to stay strong. So getting back to pre-war, how does that work? Well, you're buying oil, say, from the Saudis. The Saudis are now accepting US dollars. Well, at the end of the day, they're essentially laundering that money. They're putting that money back into circulation to ensure and investing back into the United States to ensure that the U.S. remains strong, that the dollar remains strong, that the U.S. has the ability to buy and be able to bolster its defensive capabilities by investing in the military. Now, what does Saudi Arabia get in exchange for this? Saudi Arabia got a defense.
Right.
The U.S. is solely responsible for the defense of Saudi Arabia, right? Like, that's exactly what they wanted. The Saudi royal family wanted to stay in power. They wanted to make sure that the people didn't rise up and kill them, just like every other, monarchy or or
Dictatorship.
authoritarian government. So the U.S. protects the Saudi family, right? It's the balance. This is the balance that people have. So what are we seeing today? Well, basically, China and Russia have really borne the brunt because the U.S. has taken its currency, its position, as the world reserve currency. And they put sanctions on China. They put sanctions on Russia. They've used their currency as a weapon against other nations, which have prevented other nations from basically transacting and buying energy. And as we see, Russia and China, they need energy.
Yes.
They need oil. They need to be able to transact, and they need to be able to buy oil. And so these sanctions and these things have really hindered their ability for growth. So they developed something called BRICS.
Yeah, BRICS.
Okay, BRICS. And basically what that is that is a consortium of countries, mainly Iran, Russia, and China.
I think Brazil is the other one.
And Brazil is in there, and Venezuela is in there, right? Basically to transact in the yuan. So Russia created the exchange, and the yuan is the currency. So no one country, okay, could essentially inflict harm on another country. They have to all work together. They all have to be in conjunction together. They created this consortium of countries so that it wouldn't be like the United States, where the United States would be able to dictate to other countries. It would basically be all these countries. So now what we're seeing is a shift from the U.S. being the world reserve currency to China being the world reserve currency. Basically, Russia and Iran have both agreed that China and the yuan would be the reserve currency. It would be the purchasing of the oil would take place through Russian exchanges. And let's be honest, the oil would be Iranian oil that they would be buying, So, and they could also be buying other oil. And what we saw is that Saudi Arabia is now accepting the yuan. We're seeing that some European countries have divested of the U.S. dollar and U.S. Treasuries altogether, and now are shifting over to the yuan in order to be able to do these transactions with Iran. So basically, what Trump has said is we're not going to fight for you. You have to figure it out yourself. Well, nobody wants to fight a war. Nobody has the capability of fighting that war. So at the end of the day, leaves one choice for these other countries, which is, okay, well, we want to buy oil. The only way to get the oil is through the Strait of Hormuz, and get our goods and services is through the Strait of Hormuz, which means we have to pay the toll. Well, the only way we can pay this toll is with the yuan. So we're going to buy the yuan, and we're going to pay them their toll, and we're going to get our oil.
That's it.
And that's it.
So it kind of takes the point of this war is well, now what's the mission? Now what's the mission?
Wait a minute, there was a mission to begin with? There was no mission.
Well, I know. We've had so many shifting narratives as to why we're here. I think that the hope was that we would they wanted to take Iran off of the playing field for oil and take control of that strait. Well, that's not happening.
No, what they wanted to do, so BRICS was becoming more formidable. Okay? And Trump just thought that he could eliminate BRICS by eliminating Iran from the equation.
Yeah, well, that didn't work.
And that's really what this was. It was, we just want to eliminate Iran, right? It wasn't like regime change. We want to eliminate Iran. The only thing I heard that I actually believe was they wanted it to be like Venezuela, where they could go in, just chop off the head and say, we're now in charge, and this is what we're going to do, and therefore we wouldn't have to worry about BRICS. We take over Iran, we don't have to worry about BRICS anymore because now everything, we control the strait, we would control everything.
But
And
let me ask you a
that didn't
question.
happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so let me ask you this question. And also to our audience, I'd like to hear your input on this too. If that's the case and it was to, stop the advance of BRICS, why the hell did Trump lift the sanctions not only on Russia, but on Iran?
He had no choice. He had no choice. He had once the Strait of Hormuz was closed and they weren't allowing goods, services, and oil through the strait, that changed the narrative altogether. You're talking about India, you're talking about Pakistan, you're talking about China. They all need that oil. You're talking about Europe, they need oil and natural gas. Well, they just hit the largest natural gas in the region.
I know.
Right? So where are they getting that from? They only could get it from Russia now. Russia's the only one that could provide liquid natural gas. So if you're saying these are our allies and this is what they're saying they need, and you have no ability to be able to provide it, and the only one with that could provide it is Russia, well, you have no choice but to lift sanctions. Otherwise, who are you sanctioning?
But what's interesting is that Europe didn't lift sanctions. We did. We lift sanctions, and then we lift sanctions on the country we're bombing.
But sanctions are only by us because sanctions are related to the dollar.
Okay.
Like, think about what sanctions are. Sanctions are the dollar. Europe is now buying liquid natural gas, LNG from Russia. That started flowing again. They're buying gas from we're seeing a French tanker now went through the Strait of Hormuz. We've seen India buy from and pay the toll, and they had shipments of oil go through the Strait of Hormuz. So we're seeing it. We're seeing now the shift, right? If you are willing to pay the toll to Iran, which Iran is now making fortunes of money, right? And China is now making a fortune of money, and Russia is now making a fortune of money. The only ones who benefited from this war are those three countries.
Yeah,
everybody else is hurting.
I mean, if Trump didn't look like a Russian asset before, really looks like he's just basically. I had no idea that MAGA meant make Russia great again and China great again, and because that's what we're doing here.
But look at the deals he made. Like, he went to Russia, he made deals with Russia, he's building real estate deals in Russia. Jared Kushner, Don Jr., they all have tons of deals on the table for not only the region in the Middle East, but they also have it for Asia and that whole region. So, of course they're this is all a grift. This is all like what they can extract. Again, this is the corporate private equity takeover of the United States. All they're going to leave behind is debt. That's it. They're going to take all the resources, all the assets, everything from this country. We're seeing that now with oil. They're depleting the reserve. The national oil reserve.
Yes.
And they're just giving it to the oil companies. They're not even taking any money from them.
Yeah. We talked about that.
They're not replacing it. So at the end of the day, when the strategic oil reserve is empty, they're just going to say, fuck you. We don't have to replace anything. The dollar sucks. Your economy is shit. The oil companies can just walk away and say, fuck you.
That's interesting. How long do you think our reserves are going to last? Do you have any ideas?
They've been. Listen,
I know
it's
they've
not
been
like we had a ton in there to begin with.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have that much in
Yeah.
there. We've already drained them and didn't put them back. And the funny part is, and we talked about this, and I pointed to Mr. Global, who also discussed this. These reserves could have been sold, right? And put that money back into the Treasury, but instead they loaned it out to the oil companies, to the big oil corporations.
everything is a giveaway. I mean, look, one of the things that we've been seeing in this war is drones. You know, the
Yes.
use of drones. Everybody's using drones. The drones that Iran is using cost anywhere between $30,000 and $50,000, right, per drone, right? The ones the United States are using cost anywhere between $150,000 and $200,000. Why is that the case? Look at the recent contract. They recently gave out a contract for drones to Jared Kushner,
I was just going to say that. Yep.
who owns no drone company. So what is he doing? He's going to take that money. He's going to take a slice of money off the top for his company to profit, and then he's going to subcontract out to another company. That just adds to the cost, right? I understand that people don't understand how government works, but this is how the grift occurs, okay?
Yeah.
Is the fact that what you have these wealthy billionaires that don't own any companies, that have these shell companies. And then what they do is the government pays them money, and then they go out and hire a drone company, okay, to make the drones for them. And there are no standards. So you get shitty drones,
Yep.
or you'll get shitty products, which is why, believe it or not, you had the IG's office, the Office of the Inspector General, right, of the DOD and other units, the Justice Department and others, that would make sure that the goods and services that the government is paying for are appropriate, because who ends up being hurt if you get a faulty product? Our soldiers get hurt.
Yes.
Our soldiers get hurt if we are buying faulty products. But what did Trump do day one when he got into office?
Got rid of them
fired all the inspector generals.
All 19 of them.
Okay?
You know what their job was? It was to look for waste, fraud, and abuse. That was their job.
Right.
That was their job.
To ensure that the products and services that the government was buying were being fulfilled. And now what do we see? We are seeing that those products and services are not being fulfilled, that the government is paying money for things that they're not receiving. Because this government, all they care about is taking your tax dollars and funneling it to their rich Epstein billionaire friends.
Yep.
That's it. That's it. And keeping taxes low. That's all they care about. Keeping taxes low for their wealthy benefactors and trying to extract money.
Yeah. Well, that's just more for their bottom line, right? And we can pay for it all. And so that's where we are with this ridiculous war.
And again, how much do you owe right now? $114,000. You don't understand that. I understand you don't think you owe that, but you owe. Each person now owes $114,000 to your federal government. You are in debt to $114,000, right?
There it is.
I want everybody to understand you are in debt.
And it's you could see it jumping up right there. This is happening live. 9:13. Look at that. Just jumping up every few seconds. Jesus. So moving on, because running low on time here. A couple of quick notes. Pam Bondi got fired on Thursday, which was really interesting because that was the day after she went along with President Trump to watch the hearings on the birthright citizenship. So she was sitting there next to him. And then the next day she was let out the door, and he made this post about her moving on to the private sector. So that's interesting. But I was watching the Romano Report. He got hold of a story that said that 5 minutes after she was out the door, they were pulling her pictures off the walls, pulling her name off the door. They couldn't get rid of any evidence, any footprint of Pam Bondi fast enough. So I thought that was very interesting. What do you think about that?
I find the whole thing, the whole thing is really interesting in the fact that them releasing the Epstein files was a distraction for Doge, right? Like that's what that was, right? They released it in order to distract people from the fact that they were
Tearing the
entering
government
into all
apart.
these contracts. Well, it gave a huge tax break. They gave a tax break to the Epstein billionaires, so they distracted from the huge tax break by releasing the Epstein files. I mean, like and then after releasing the Epstein files, they need another distraction, so they then go to war in Iran. I mean, and now that he's become so unpopular, he's just firing everybody, but he's not firing any of the men. He's firing all the women.
All the
right?
women.
I mean,
And you know what follows
You know?
the women? I mean, we're women are the across the board minority, but the next one is, I think Kash Patel is going to be on that list, right? Besant, right? The
I
brown
don't know
people.
if Patel's going to be on that list at all. I think
He's a freaking idiot.
He is, but he's a man, and Trump doesn't like women, and he likes men.
Yeah, but he's a brown man. I figure that isn't that part of their.
I don't. Again, I don't know. I'm a little surprised that he ever released the. I know that Congressman Massey said, "Oh, you have 30 more days to release the rest of the Epstein." They ain't releasing the Epstein files. It's not going to happen. They aren't going to do it. They don't have to do it. You could point to laws all you want. They have flat out said they aren't going to follow laws, and Trump is immune from following laws. So, like, he has immunity and he can break whatever laws he wants. All he has to do is issue an executive order saying we're not releasing the Epstein files, and he can't be held accountable for that. Not only that, my question has always been, okay, if the Attorney General didn't release the Epstein files, and this is a question for everybody. Maybe somebody knows this more than I do. They don't release the Epstein files. Who is prosecuting them? Who's prosecuting the Attorney General?
Yeah, nobody.
I mean, like, let's be honest. Thomas Massey can demand, they can do whatever laws that they want. You can't compel the Justice Department pretty much to do anything you want at this point in time. You have there is no agency that can prosecute the Attorney General's office. Just none. There's no authority that is going to prosecute the Attorney General's office. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, if you know of an agency that can prosecute the Attorney General for not following the law, please share with me. But I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening because I don't see any, Congress ain't going to do anything. Congress
Not this Congress.
has shown that. I don't think any Congress. I really don't think any Congress. I think the only way that that Congress does their job is if an overwhelming number of progressives get elected in the fall. Justice Democrats. Overwhelming. Because I guarantee you, if that doesn't happen, the Democrats will find the 10 votes or whatever that'll vote with Republicans every fucking time. And it won't be the same fucking people. It'll be different people every time. But there'll always be just the right number of votes on the Democratic side to defect over to the Republicans. Because at the end of the day, who's running the country? It's AIPAC. AIPAC's running the country.
Yeah.
You want to know who the deep state is? It's AIPAC.
Yeah.
End of story. That's it.
Yeah. This is
That's your deep state.
This
Not
is
hard
the yeah, it's pretty much on display right now. It's on full display. In fact, I saw an interesting interview from Democracy Now! With the woman who a Palestinian
I know who
woman.
Yeah.
Forgot her. Lupa, I think is her name is, and she spent a year. She spent a year in detention, and she either has or was in the process of completing her green card. Her mother is an American, and she was put in detention pretty much because she spoke up about what's happening in Gaza. That goes against everything that America stands for when it comes to free speech. Look, you don't have to agree with what she says. You don't have to like what she says, but she is allowed to say it. Even Charlie Kirk said that, right?
Listen, I'm going to say this. It goes against everything America is supposed to stand for.
Yes.
It's not what America stands for at all. I mean, we've seen numerous laws passed by both Democrats and Republicans. They're literally trying to pass laws against free speech, and they've been doing it for years. And now they're doing it more than ever. And they this speech, our speech that we're doing right now, listen, in a few years that may not even be available. They definitely, and they're using, AI tools, they're using Google, they're using any mechanism they can to suppress that speech. All I can say is I agree with Sonia Sotomayor when she said that when lawyers start advocating for censorship, that law school failed.
Yes.
Okay, that law school failed, and Congress is made up of mostly lawyers.
Yeah. So they should know
Okay,
better.
and they have failed. Their schools have failed. They've failed. I mean, they are traitors to the Constitution. They're traitors to America. Every single one of them. And I'm gonna say it over and over again. I mean, they can talk all they want and try to, wrap themselves in whatever flags that they want. They're traitors.
Yeah.
They're traitors. This America First nonsense, none of them have put America first. They've put their own pocketbooks first. Everything is about what money they can make out of this. They're sitting there cashing checks. Like, it would have been appalling back in the day to buy stocks and then start a war, which is what Hegseth did, which is what congressmen did. You're sending troops to die. You're sending Americans to die.
Yes.
Americans to die in a war, okay? And you're buying stocks to make money.
Yeah.
Off of their death. In the olden days, people would be prosecuted for that. Nobody would be reelected. They would all be like, there would be like advertisements, whatever. But since AIPAC runs everything and AIPAC is like all for that, you don't see the ads. Nobody's going to run against these people on these platforms. Nobody's saying anything. Everybody's quiet.
Yeah. So I guess they're all gambling. What is this, on the poly market? They're like gambling the war on the poly market.
Yep. Yep.
And
and government officials made huge bets before sending Americans into harm's way. And and I'm really sick and tired of MAGA wrapping themselves in the flag and calling me un-American while the people that they support are profiting off of the same Americans dying. I support the troops. I don't want to send our troops to war. Okay? I don't think that that's necessary. I think our troops should be here. I think we should provide homes for our troops. I think that we should pay them better. I think that we should have a VA that actually caters to their health needs, including PTSD and stress. Okay? I believe in those things. I think I'm more patriotic than they are, but you can't measure patriotism. Patriotism is unique to each individual. But all I'm going to say is you're a traitor because of the fact that you are loving your guys who are betting on the death of American soldiers.
Yeah, whether they live or die, they are simply a dollar
A tool for them
to bet on. Way to make money.
Right. It's a commodity.
Yeah.
They've commoditized our military, okay? And somehow they want to wrap themselves in the flag and say that they're patriots.
Yeah. I
Seriously.
Yeah. No.
I don't want to hear it. What we're going to do is we'll wrap up this segment, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do a shorter segment with just some town follow-up regarding the interview that Denise did with our town supervisor here in the town of Walk Hill.
Okay. That sounds like a great idea. So,
right.
So whether you're celebrating Easter or Passover, if you have any family overseas, just know that we're thinking and praying for their safety, and just wishing you well. have a good, safe holiday, and we'll talk to you soon. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us continue to give you this content and to help others find us. Have a great one, folks. We love you.
Peace.